I think we are beginning live in a strange realm, a strange digital realm, no less. And so we're going to give it a few moments. It usually takes about 2 hours for anyone within the time stream to become available. So everyone that's watching this video, you guys will be watching it from the very near future. So thank you for that. For those of you guys on the time stream that find us, hello there. Okay, I see a few people rolling in. That's a very good sign. That means our timelines have sort of like merged. We're all on the same kind of vibratory level in the energy of the moment. And I want to say thank you to those of you guys that are rolling in. As usual, I'm going to click on the Facebook screen. Facebook loves me so much. They put every single live stream I do to only me. That's how much, really, it's amazing. That's how much they love me. So what I have learned to do is click over to the other screen and enable Facebook. So if you're one of like the 2 to 3.5 people that will kind of that will see us in the Facebook world, thank you. You have successfully defeated the AI algorithm, the strange sort of blockade that they put over us. And so, yeah, thank you for those of you guys on Facebook and for everybody else on YouTube. Thanks for being here. Thanks for showing up. We are live from a strange realm once again. I made a weird mistake today. As an adult, I decided to take a nap for like a really long period of time. And let me just tell you, it's like it just turned my brain to this weird sort of mushy thing where I was like, what time is it? What day? I'm doing a show in an hour. So it's, I had to like regenerate all kinds of energy and like refocus myself, which is weird at the age of, I think I'm almost 45. Like taking a nap in the daytime it's like a weird, it is a weird thing now. Like when I was age 4, it was really easy to do. It was normalized. Now it's like I have to do a weird brain reset. But I think it's usually because you'll sleep a little too long. You know what I mean? It's like this weird sort of thing happens. So thanks for coming in, everybody. Thank you for being here. Jeremy Burr says, sorry, is this live? Totally. Hell yeah, it's live. Every single thing I do is live. I do not like pre-recorded stuff. I don't know why. I'm a weirdo. Maybe I should do pre-recorded interviews. Maybe we can edit them and I can take out all the awkward words and all the weird, all the weird facial expressions that I do during this process. But anyway, yeah, we're totally live. Good to see you guys. Hello, Tasha Huck. Good to see you there. Be kind. Very cool. I have an affinity for weird or awkward screen names. So thank you for showing up. Be kind. We got the Keystone Shadow. Good to see you again. I'm glad you showed up in this strange neighborhood. That's a rare thing. So hello there, Cassandra Fleski. Good to see your face again. Absolutely. Thank you, Cassandra. I also prefer lives as well. There's a very interesting sort of there's just a randomness that occurs that can only work in my strange world when we do it live. If I do like a pre-recorded thing, it's just way too. I will judge myself too much and it'll never come out. It's just awkward. And so anyway, thank you for being here, you guys. This is, as you know, Live from a Strange Realm. It's an accidental show that I created. I wish I had a really great message or a really great reason, but it was really only because like I couldn't get on many shows and I wanted to talk to people and I wanted to be more present publicly. And I realized like, whoa, okay, maybe I'll just do my own version. For those of you guys that know me in the real world, you also know that when it comes to energy work and the processes and the frequencies that we create as multidimensional beings, I believe one of the greatest things we can do is create our own version of everything. Your version will work better than everyone else's. And so, boom, here we are once again. And so we've created this accidental show. And really, the whole reason behind it was that I wanted to start having conversations with people whose energy I admired, people who I had seen within our community and had experiences with and had left an impression on me. And so let me tell you what, it is a finite show. It's not going to go on that much longer because there's only so many people in this world that I have worked with or had encounters with that I want to bring on here. And so today's going to be a really, really cool one. We've had a really good run of awesome, really legitimate, really cool people that I have genuinely enjoyed connecting with. And today is no exception. And so if you guys are watching us on YouTube, please do click the share button. If you're one of the 1.3 people watching us on Facebook, click the share button. It'll just get blocked instantly, like the weird AI thing will sort of block us on Facebook. But thank you for being here. We are going to be taking some questions today. And the first thing I want to say, for those of you guys that are here, if you can do this, it's going to have an incredible impact on your life in the days to come, especially if you're one of the people that's here in the US and you're looking for something to do over the coming months, because you got just over a month to have this experience. But a lot of us are going to be gathering in a place called Grafton, Illinois, May 2nd through 5th for the Secret Space Conference. And so it's one of many kind of soul family reunion and kind of get-togethers that are taking place on the earth plane in the coming years. And it's incredibly important for those of us going through this awakening process, for those of us remembering who we are, for those of us remembering what is our strange mission in this life. Why am I attracted to certain things or movements or topics or certain, whatever it is, events. And so it's basically the next chance for a lot of us to connect physically. You can also purchase a live stream ticket, but if you're here on this live stream and you have not done so already, let's say you're on your laptop or your computer right now, open another window and go to secretspaceconference.info. Seriously, get a live stream ticket, buy a ticket if you can show up there. Lodging is still available, but this is probably the place you're going to want to be in the coming months. And so I'm looking forward to seeing a number of you strange beings there. And today we have with us a really cool guest, somebody that I actually wanted to have on the show like a couple weeks back. I think maybe it was a month ago. I don't know. My concept of time, you guys, is so bad that it's embarrassing. People will come to me and be like, hey, like, remember me? So we had a session 2 weeks ago or last month. And I'm like, what? And it's like, it'll be totally gone. But then I'll like randomly remember people from 3 years ago like it was yesterday. My concept of time is very, very distorted. And so anyway, that said, today we have a really cool guest. Next week we have a bunch of other people coming up as well. Maybe not a bunch, but like a very small handful. But one of the people that I wanted to talk to for a while, Jackie Kenner. And so here we go. Jackie's in the background. She'll be kind of cringing, but I first encountered Jackie Kenner through Journey to Truth podcast when she was doing an interview on there. And I had a strange experience where I was kind of watching her interview, and there's a thing that happens with me as, I guess we could call it, a professional psychic or intuitive, which, guess what? A lot of you guys are professional psychics and intuitives as well. Some of us turn it on a little faster and sooner than other people, and other people, that's not their sort of role in life. But for me, I began to realize at another stage of my journey in this life that when people would talk, they would talk about their experiences. Sometimes it felt like a story they were telling. And I was like, that's fun and cool. And then other times people would talk about things and it was like I could go there with them and I could watch it. It was like the scene that would develop. And it was one of the things that helped me understand what I call the frequency of truth and the authenticity of the way people share their experiences. For those of us that are unlocking what many of us call the wavelength of telepathic communication in the body, you'll find that as you go through certain experiences and get a big dose of people's energy, in some cases, you will be able to feel the realism, the authenticity, the true energy behind it. And so when I first saw Jackie Kenner on Journey to Truth, it was like I was going there with her and I was experiencing the energy that she was talking about. I found myself as a child within a room in this sort of, I don't know, I don't really get into my own stuff on the show, but, we were very, very vividly together watching some of the experiences that she was talking about and going through. And it left a really huge effect on me, to the extent that a few months, maybe a year, I don't know how long it was after that, I ended up appearing on a show that she was doing with Tony Rodriguez at the time. I think you guys are still doing stuff together, but it's Talks with Tony on Patreon. And a lot of you guys remember, for some of you guys that watch our show, you will remember that Tony Rodriguez was on our show, I think about a month ago. It was actually through our Patreon group, the Blue Flame Collective, but it was sort of the beginning point of the show that we were doing. It sort of sparked this new beginning process. And so I'm just going to say it. This is a very vulnerable moment for me, you guys. But prior to going on their show, I had a very, very brief kind of Zoom chat with Jackie. And it was one of those moments in my life, you guys, where someone will do a thing that you do. And by a thing, I mean there is an ability of energetic analysis and feeling a person's energy that I will do with people when I encounter them, when I do a session with them, and I'll just like, oh yeah, okay, tell me about yourself. What do we need to know? And it's like I will purposely focus my energy onto someone's, we could call it aura, we could call it energy body, we could call, whatever it is. And I had such a strange and pivotal experience with Jackie that it was like I could feel the examination. I could feel the multiple layers of sort of scrutiny and the ability that this person had to so accurately feel into, engage the quality of a person's energy that it literally, I'm just going to say it left me shook in this way where I was like, whoa, okay, that's what that's like. Okay, and it's a thing that you will recognize when you do it yourself, and it's like you'll peer into someone's energy, and I realize I do this every day, literally every day, for better or worse. And I mean that, for better or worse, because just because you've met with 5,000 people and done thousands of sessions doesn't necessarily mean you did a really good job. But what it'll do is it'll train you. It'll train you to learn how to connect intuitively. It'll train you to learn how to connect with spirit. And when I encountered Jackie Kenner's energy, it was one of those things that let me, like, boom, it hit me in a way where I was like, I'm just going to say it. For those of you guys that get sensitive about things, I sat there going, holy shit. Whoa. Okay. This person is for real. And so here we are. Here we are a couple months later. And when I started to do this strange show, I was like, who would I actually want to talk to? Who do I really, really want to hear from? And she was one of those people that just like left a mark. They will leave an impression on you with kind of how they interact and the nature of their energy and the depth with which they communicate. And so here we are a few months later, and we're going to begin the show. And so here we go. I'm going to go ahead and read her quick bio. And I want to let you know what we're going to be doing today, you guys. We're going to be doing kind of an interview, a little bit of a discussion. We're going to be asking Jackie some questions about what she does and kind of her process and her life and her experiences. And so you're free to put questions in the chat. Sometimes I'm really good about getting to questions. Sometimes it's like, sometimes it just passes by. But let me go ahead and grab that bio. This is awkward because I should have had it ready. But anyway, Jacqueline Kenner is a medium and spiritual connections teacher with memories of off-planet experiences and lifelong contact with non-human guides. A psychic since childhood, Jackie had an extreme expansion of her connection abilities at the age of 29, which she attributes largely to her relationship with an ultra-dimensional community. Jackie shares her abilities professionally through one-on-one sessions and teaching programs for those looking to connect with the unseen world and enhance their own abilities. And I was actually gifted one of her classes recently. I actually went through and checked a bit of it out, more than I do with other people, because other people send me their stuff and I'm like, oh, very cool, thank you. I'll be honest with you, seriously, a lot of it just like goes in one ear and out the other. And for some reason, I felt called to actually look at the content and the things that she was creating. And I think that you guys will find that with people that are very authentic and very real, that will bring a real frequency of energy into our greater community. And she's definitely one of those people. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna awkwardly bring you on the screen. But hello there. Hopefully you can hear me. How are you?
Hi, I'm very well. Can you hear me okay?
Totally. Thank you for showing up. I know you got a lot of stuff going on in the world.
I'm happy to be here, and what a nice introduction.
Thank you. Hopefully it wasn't too like embarrassing. I have a
No, I
tendency
loved
to
it.
embarrass
Please go
myself.
on.
I have a tendency to embarrass myself on these things. But anyway, thank you for being here. Thanks for doing what you do. We have a couple of things to get into. I don't know. Sometimes it goes an hour. Sometimes it goes a little longer. Sometimes it's very, very short. But anyway, yeah, thank you for showing up. And I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. One of the things that really grabbed me about your story, both on Journey to Truth and also what little I've heard of you, is something that is very similar to me. And that is what you term the rapid expansion, a massive expansion of your abilities. And for you, it was age 29. But if you don't mind, take us a little bit through whatever feels relevant, how that process went. And yeah, what would you like us to know about that?
The process at what happened at age 29? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
How did you activate into this strange timeline of service, I guess we could say?
I did not activate. It was just happening. Except there were certain things that I was doing. I stopped drinking alcohol, which is a very pivotal change in my life. Actually, everything changed from that moment forward. And I started taking a deep teaching and practice of yoga. I wanted to become a teacher. So I joined a teacher training and was interning. And so I was really learning about energy and the body, and even my first introduction to past lives, which is at the time, that's all I was aware of. I didn't even really believe in it. And I had my first, what I now call like waking recall, like my first sitting there thinking about something as a memory that I couldn't put into my timeline. And that led me my timeline on Earth. This timeline as a human, I was actively and vividly contemplating a memory that when I came out of the memory, I was like, wait, I, I never, that didn't happen. That doesn't fit anywhere in my. So I always tell this joke. I went to a woman I was working with for acupuncture and I said, look, either I'm going crazy or there's something more going on than we're all talking about. And she very lovingly said, okay, let's be honest, both are possible, but only one is likely. So she hooked me up with teachers, really. Teachers and other. I don't really consider myself a healer. I just say a guide. I guide you to your truth. You work with that. You do your own healing, or to a truth, because you can find your truth without me. I'm just guiding you to certain truths that are relevant. And those teachers said to me, you're probably remembering a past life. And at the time I was like, I didn't even believe in them, jump to 10 years later. And I think we might have simultaneous lives, some forced and some natural. And that's how it started, really. It was like probably a combination of detoxing my body, becoming aware of other possibilities. That's why I believe in study, because if you have no reference point for what's possible and what's out there, then you can't even reconcile your own experiences.
Yeah.
You'll just throw them out like I did. Like, what do you mean past life? And one of the teachers just said, what's happening is you're a medium. And I was like, I am? Really? And holy shit, this feels dangerous. Like I had both thoughts at the same time. And she said, no, you are a medium. You need to trust the thoughts and feelings that are coming through, and you need to talk to people about them. And I was very scared too, because I didn't really know how to work with it or what to do. So I asked, I trained with her for many years, and I trained with other people and learned things. And then eventually I had my first session, which was 10 years ago, maybe. And I'm 37. So I was like getting into it before at 29, it was like, bam. And I saw, sorry, my dog's actually sitting in my lap.
Oh, it's cool. Yeah, totally.
By the way, I've interviewed people. I'm talking for a long time, so I'm going to pause and ask if you have questions.
Please
okay.
do. I will eventually start like interrupting you at a certain
Okay.
stage. For people that know, I'll do it constantly. But no, yeah, absolutely. Please.
Okay.
So you're 37. You were going through this process. You started to do sessions. People informed you that you were a medium, very much like me. Someone saw me, was like, "You're a psychic. That's why you are the way you are." So we had a moment of recognition, and then you began the process of kind of development and doing the thing that you're doing. Pick up from there.
So when she told me you're a medium, I want to say she was giving a label to the experiences I was sharing with her. It wasn't that, I can't freaking stand when people are like, you were this on another planet, you were that, you are this. No, I was telling her what was happening to me and what I was experiencing. And she said, that's a medium. And then she encouraged me to study that and research that. So I want to be very careful about it. Wasn't like I just didn't have a name for it. And I didn't understand how I knew things that other people in the room didn't know. And I would get really frustrated, especially at work, and be like, how could you not see this or know this? So then I started seeing my guides as light, by the way. I started seeing them as light. First, I started feeling them. Then I started seeing them as light. At age 29 is when I saw the forms. I saw how many there were. I had a full-on conversation with them where they said, you need to accept that we're real. You need to accept that this is part of who you are in this life, and you need to help people with it. And I made a deal with them. I said, I'll help people if you will be with me, and I don't want to hurt anyone. I don't know why that was so important to me then. It really still is now, but I don't want to hurt anyone. So if you're going to be with me and you're going to be in charge of that, then I will do this. I didn't know what this was at the time, but I
Mhm.
walked back to my office and was like, I'm quitting.
Yeah.
Like, I'm quitting because there's something else going on and I have to follow it.
Yeah. Lord, I had a very similar experience in that, very, very much like that, where it was like there was a point, and honestly, very much like you. And, granted, we all have our own individual experiences in that, but I would say around like for me, it was little bit later, around 2014, 2015, I started to see lights as well. I started to have weird experiences in a totally different line of work and a whole other thing. And very much like you, it came to this culmination where the day came where I realized it was beings and they were talking to me. And kind of like you, I made a kind of a little bit of a bargain, which isn't always a thing that we could do as spirit. But in my case, the bargain was I will do this. And just like you, I didn't know what it was. I was like, I'll do it. Okay, literally on my hands and knees crying, I'll do it, as long as you kept my son safe. My son's 20 now. He's going to college. He's doing his thing. He's doing really well. But that was sort of I was like, as long as he's safe and nothing happens, I'll do whatever you want. And what's wild is they've honored that. It has unconditionally been honored. And so, for you sort of begin this journey. And if you can, what were you doing as an occupation, or the version of you that you chose like to quit? What was your job at that time?
I have to say, I think I've hurt people, by the way, by things that have come in. So
Okay.
I don't know
Part
if
of
my
the
kept
journey.
the
And
bargain.
sometimes,
Yeah.
not to make it weird, and sorry to like
Yeah.
instantly insert, but sometimes that's part of the process.
Yeah. It's hard though when something comes through that hurts someone, because I'm still a human on the other side, and I'm like, I don't want you to hurt. But
Right.
I have hurt people. Um, I was working in operations for tech startups in New York City. So these companies either are getting millions of dollars for an idea, or they've already received millions of dollars and they're trying to raise more. And it was usually um, like AI based companies, like medical AI, pharmaceutical companies, which I don't even really, I don't
Yeah.
know. I have mixed feelings about pharma. Um, and occasionally it would be like in finance.
Yeah.
So nothing really like this at all.
So the timeline ended, you sort of begin to walk away. And how did you, I guess, consciously begin to develop, we could call it abilities, we could call it the traits of you that kind of led you into this thing? Was it a weird and bumpy road? And I guess I'll just ask it. At what point did you start to realize or come to the understanding that there was what we might call it extra dimensional or extraterrestrial, or whatever kind of label you want to add to it? At what point did those things start showing up? And I want to acknowledge that's a multi-leveled question. I do really long-winded, weird ones, so grab onto
That's
whatever you
okay.
can. But yeah, go ahead.
I have always, I mean, I had this as a child, super young. Um, I would always check the sky before I went to bed for them, which is odd. And I don't think I ever didn't believe in U, UDs, as I call them, ultra dimensionals or ETs. And, maybe they're the same. We don't know. And then I got into what's called energetic nutrition a couple years into that journey. And I was in the practice and I was using something called muscle testing.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to try and remote test someone in Australia.
Nice.
And so I closed my eyes and set my intention on that person. And I was testing through the doctor, who's phenomenal. I mean, she's just this high vibe human being. And when I did, I saw her life. I felt her feelings. I got this rush of information, and it was hard. She had lost her will to live. And it was my close friend who had given us permission to test her. And I opened my eyes and I was like, this is too much. This is too much at once. Like as humans, we use our five senses to receive information. When you tap into, all of us have this ability, but when you start working with it and you're not used to it, you haven't trained your nervous system for it, it can blow a fuse almost. It's
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming. And I got this sense of like no, this is okay. Like you will acclimate to this. So I closed my eyes and I went back in and I just saw aliens. I saw aliens. I saw what I call my committee, and they were right there in my face and they levitated this bit of information. And I reopened my eyes and I stepped back and I was like, Dr. A, aliens are real. And she sat up and she goes, of course they are. Duh. And I was like, no, but I just experienced it in my, not in a deep meditation or a yogic practice or a sweat lodge or anything. I just fucking saw them. And, things weren't making sense because I hadn't spent time with them, I guess. Like I'd never seen them, first of all, and I saw them. But that was the moment that I was like, holy shit, this is not a speculation. This is not a like, yes, it's likely, it's probable. I'm watching for them. I'm dreaming of them. This was like, for me, it was the moment that it was reality.
Yeah. Whoa, wild. Here comes a strange and awkward observation. I love the fact that you call them a committee, because for me it was very similar in that I started to become aware of what I call the multidimensional higher self council. We all have our own fun labels, but during that journey in the very early days, just like you, I started to realize, well, there's a whole group of beings that are connecting with me and they're all entirely different. And we all have our own, I guess we would call, visual representations that will show up within the mind's eye. But for me, it was a host of strange beings, which honestly is one of the reasons why whenever I show up in things now, I'm always like, hello, strange beings. Because for me, there was a stage where I would kind of look up and to the left internally. And a lot of people have like a directional connection thing. Some people don't need it, but I would turn up and to the left and it was like there was a round table, like a weird table of all these beings just sitting there. And to me, I think, and I would like you to possibly comment on this, I do believe that what we call the higher self, and maybe that's just for me, maybe you're you, or maybe it's for everyone, is actually a collection of a number of consciousnesses and beings and identities that we have been and connected with throughout the passage of time. That, at least in my case, they showed me that they all lend their consciousness to the version of Matthew that exists in this body. As advisors, as elements of self, as in certain cases, what we might call protection as well, but that's always kind of a mixed bag. But how did you begin to realize and understand that this was extraterrestrial guidance? And maybe that's a misnomer, maybe ultra dimensional, but yeah.
I think you said something important. I would probably just change one part of it, if I may.
Yeah.
I don't believe they're lending. I believe we are one.
There we go.
Yeah. And so I got to back up a little bit. When we get into certain information bands, which I believe are consciousness entities. So I'm studying yoga, which means union. It's the ultimate understanding that we are one. We're not separate from source. And even though my mental capacity wasn't ready to fully grasp that the way that I can now, I was vibrationally entering into that information band. And so I was becoming aware of the oneness of all that is, our connection to source. And I don't know what source is, but I know everything is source. And so to me, that started to include other entities. Prior to this awakening, where we really did start publicly talking about ETs or being star seeds or having experienced life in other form than human, we talked about angels and we talked about prophets and we talked about connections to God. And to me, it's really the same message delivered in different ways. So I think that yogic, let me say, it's the same reason why if you read a book that's attached to the occult or evil practices, even if you're not engaging in those, you start to feel bad. You start to have bad dreams. You start to feel like you might be doing something wrong, even though you're not. You're only trying to connect. It's because you've entered that information band. Put the book the fuck down and read something higher vibe. Yeah. But I think that consciousness entity of the yogic teachings was impacting me, even though my nervous system, my brain, my humanness wasn't quite there yet. And that was opening me up to higher truths. I was just becoming aware as a human to things that I was already connected to. Did I answer your question?
I believe you did, but I'm also a very long-winded, angular question
Okay.
asker, and so it's like you won't even need to answer it because it's like less about the question and more about the observation of energy that kind of comes forward. But um, I believe it did, and I'm going to instantly transition in like a weird, awkward way. This is us changing the lane where you're like, we're going to change the lane over there. And so within that experience, I guess we could call of rediscovering yourself, of kind of understanding the nature of connections with the ultra dimensional energy that is all one in this now moment on the earth plane. At a certain stage, you started to uncover what we would call maybe hidden memories, blocked memories, other experiences that had taken place. And I'll use the most popular buzzword of the moment. Some people call it secret space program stuff, or, experimental program things. And it's not necessarily experience that I've had in this life, not in this life, we could say, but there has been a lot of other strange things. For you, when did you start to put that together and start to notice and kind of recall those fragments of other experiences? How did that go for you?
Well, it went like someone had encouraged me to meditate to connect to past lives or higher self or use guided meditations. And I started having this strange experience where I would connect and I would connect to myself. Now it was in, not now, it was then, which is also now, but in that linear moment in Earth timeline. And I would be in a craft or off planet, and I would desperately try to get my own attention, to tell myself to calm down or whatever it was that I needed. And I would say, like, you are impacting me on earth. Like, this isn't cool. We're in this together. You need to get your shit together so that I can have my shit together. And I was talking to her, and I thought, are we in a hologram? Is this outside the hologram that's projecting, like, because even if we're a hologram, something's controlling it all.
Mhm.
And so I thought, am I like some dream, like video game for some entity that lives off? Like, is this even real? And I was really confused by it. But when I would talk to her, she would tell me things too, but it was me. I was
Yeah.
talking to me in another place at the same time. And the things that she would tell me would help me in my human, this timeline life. So I'm working as a medium. I have these abilities, psychic abilities, which manifest for me in different ways than others. Um, I'm talking to these now entities that, are trying to help me understand some things that I'm working with. And I'm having these really weird um, meditations where I'm connecting to myself off planet, wherever I'm going, combining that with always checking the night sky before bed. And one memory as a child that my whole family remembers, where there were bright lights outside and a swinging door. Our front door was opening and closing really fast. And we always said it was a burglar shining spotlights into our house. I woke up on the floor. Never questioned it. It was just like,
Mhm.
maybe I was scared. I jumped on the floor. Maybe I was hiding. I don't know. Then I see an interview, which was Tony Rodriguez, where he talks about the space program. And for the first time ever, I was like, that makes more sense than anything I've ever come across.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to Tony and was like, look, I just dumped on him. I was like, "Blah, blah, 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 blah. Do you think it's possible?" And Tony was like, first of all, hello. Like, how are you? Um, and he gave me these exercises to do that worked for him, to reconnect to things which, we put together to help others, because I think there are hundreds of thousands of people, if not millions, that this could be happening to. And then I started having active memories where I was like, again, this doesn't fit in my timeline. This does not
Mhm.
make sense. And I don't even remember what you asked me. I'm going on a long
Oh
rambling
no,
answer.
this is actually perfect. The original spirit of it was trying to unpack when did you start to experience memories or recall or the sort of blocked fragments of being involved in maybe something like an experimental program or just your own understanding of whatever that process is.
So those meditations started at 29, um, which doesn't quite fit with the whole possibility of the 20-year thing
Mhm.
because I was connecting to a part of myself somewhere. Look, I this is all speculation for me. I
Totally.
don't know. I can only share what's come through
Yeah.
and what I remember and strangely confirm things with other people who have, a lot more memory recall than I do. I'll tell you something that I realized in the past few years. I thought I had a very vivid imagination as a kid. Like, I remembered giants, like giant
Mhm.
beings,
Oh yeah.
or I remembered being visited and taught, like, to tie my shoe and to do things to get me ahead of others in my class. I remember talking to dead people,
Mhm.
really, or um, consciousness of people whose bodies had passed from a very young age. And I always just kind of was like, oh, so imaginative, or, you just brush it off. And then when you start to kind of like, when the gears start to click and you're like, what if that wasn't my imagination?
Yeah.
What if there were visitations? What if, and I did do hypnosis session for that memory that my whole family remembers. And it was just
Yeah.
like the standard alien abduction.
Wow.
Yeah.
I feel you on that. And like you, I kind of noticed weird stuff about myself early on. I think you had mentioned this in your other interview, and that I was very similar in that as a child, it was like I would be near a person and I would be able to tell a level of trauma that occurred in their body. And I did not identify it as me noticing what trauma was happening in their lives. It was like I would just see it, and it was grandpa in the back seat of the truck, and it was like, whoa, whoa. And I did not know how to put those things together or weird stuff. Or I remember looking at my neighbor across the street and going, wow, they're not going to last long. And 2 weeks later, I was sitting on a wall watching them wheel them out of their house. And I did not understand what that was. And I think for a lot of us, we sort of pick up those tools and pieces at an early stage. Did you notice any signs or sort of bigger pieces as a child? Because I have this feeling that we all have this sort of weird awakening journey as a child, and then the world comes in and they're all, let's put you in this box of identity. And then some of it lasts, some of it doesn't. But did you notice other things like that as a child, or how did those things activate for you?
I mean, I remember responding verbally to my mom's thoughts, and my mom would be like, like the one we always joke about is I don't want oatmeal because my mom would be like standing in the kitchen with her back to me, like, what should I make for breakfast? And she was going through everything. And then she decided, like, I'm going to make oatmeal. And I just go, no, I don't want oatmeal, but this was all her thought and me responding. And she said I was like that my whole life. I
Mm,
know when I toned it down is when I noticed I was scaring people.
mm,
And that really, uh, I didn't like that feeling. I didn't like feeling like I was scaring people. So I
mm.
was never, my mom was never like, don't say that, don't do that. I remember her reacting like, there she goes again.
Yeah.
But then I remember people around us, I was scaring them. And so I started to know this is okay to talk about, this is not okay to talk about. And then I think I started playing around with drugs and alcohol and stuff at
Yeah.
age 13.
Yeah, me
And
too.
yeah, so that whole stretch of my life, I would say I was pretty disconnected. There
Yeah.
are certain things you can't stop. I always had prophetic dreams. I've always had an impact on clocks. It's a big joke. Like if I stay at
Really?
your house, all your clocks will end up at different times, things like that. But
Huh.
science will say, oh, some people just have different magnetic fields.
Mhm.
But there have always been these little odd things that whether I was consciously connected or not were still happening. And then when I stopped, I was done with playing around with drugs by the time I got to college. It wasn't a thing. But alcohol was like, I'm not going to drink anymore. I'm just not. I
Yeah.
don't like the vibration of it. It doesn't feel natural, something weird. I don't drink like other people. All of it, I just stopped. And then getting into yoga, it was just like,
Yeah.
I reconnected, I think. Or possibly my term ended somewhere and I was like fully back in my body. Who knows?
Oh, Lord, I wonder about that. I wonder. Um, yeah. Oh, wow. And so, I like you. I was very. I got directly shamed for stuff like that as a child, and like for me, I was in a very very religious family. My family was addicted to God, like we could say seriously. They were addicted to the church, and maybe that's a good thing for some people. But early on for me, I remember I had a couple experiences where I called out somebody as a liar. As a kid, I was, man, I don't know, maybe 10 years old, somebody in church, and I was like, they're lying. And it was like so much shame was placed upon me that it was like this little thing inside me went,
Yeah, we don't do that. You learn quickly. Okay, we don't
yeah,
do that.
and it just went down, and kinda just like you at a certain stage, and I had a pretty extreme version of it, but drugs came into my life around age 14 and 15, and whoo, Lord, it was on until, I don't know, something like 1998, which seems like ancient history. It is. But,
It's
I
almost
mean,
like 30 years ago.
no, it is. I know it is, right? I know,
Crazy.
literally, like all the way to, yeah, I think it was like 1999 chapter ended. But I often wondered myself if there was some sort of a release from a different chapter or a frequency or a thing that I was involved in at the same time. And who knows if there was, but at what point did you start to remember or have experiences of what I believe you termed it the USSR Corps?
R
And
Corp,
those
yeah.
and all that whole set of experiences, when did those things start showing up for you? Because before you answer that, I will mention that as a person who has heavily digested at an earlier stage of this journey a lot of the testimonies and the stories within that realm, a lot of them felt very fragmented and really cool and really positive, and a lot of them feel like they were constructed by other people's stories, which is a big part of how we uncover memories. But there was a thing that occurred upon you kind of telling your version of this story, in which it was like as soon as you talked about it, and this is a thing that I've had with Tony as well. It's like you'll talk about a thing and I'm like, there it is, that's it right there, boom, instant engagement. When did those elements start to show up for you?
The USSR Corp was probably 2 years ago. Yeah, I would say 2 years ago.
Can you tell us a little bit about that experience or what you recall from that?
Yes. So it started with having just, I was just remember. Actually, I drove through a neighborhood, and then in my head, I thought, oh, this neighborhood looks just like that one I drove through when I was a kid. Oh, remember that time I got out of the car and helped the neighbor? But then the driver told me, like, don't say anything fucking weird. Just go carry your box. And then
Hmm.
and then I was like, wait, whose car? Wait, what? And in my memory, I went to look at the driver and there was a gray box
Hmm.
from like his midsection up. In my memory, I looked at him and there was he was grayed out. And I was like, what the fuck? This doesn't fit in my timeline. I was never in this experience. I was never with this person. And then I got mad because I was like, if I was taken against my will, this is just not okay. So I was remembering, I had to share that memory with somebody in the program to know that that gray box out is a program that
Yeah.
happens to people. So you don't remember faces, you don't remember names. And then I decided to take that memory and have a regression based on what I recalled from it. So there were certain little things I remembered, like the house was on a lake, which I thought was the ocean actually, because I was a child and very young. I remembered I was kept in like a side house of the house. I remembered that I had to drink orange juice every morning before I watched the TV, and the TV always started with the swirl, which I, by the way,
Oh,
also learned is a part
yeah.
of the, yeah. I think I was very lucky to have not been exposed to testimonies while I was remembering things, because then other people sharing with me was validating instead of causing me to question what I was remembering.
Yeah.
So then I took everything that I remembered from that into a hypnotic regression. And there was one other thing I remembered. I remembered this eel-like being with a chicken-like head. And it was strapped down on a table. And I remember just being tormented watching what was going on to it. This is a waking memory, by the way, not in the regression.
Yeah.
So I took it all into the
What were
regression.
they, sorry to interrupt, what were they doing to this eel-like being that you can recall?
All I could remember. So I'm trying to like differentiate between what I could remember and what I learned in a regression.
Mhm.
And I think that's important to do. What I could remember was they were torturing it, and that my job was to tell them whether it had life force or not. Was there a consciousness still in the body? And I was just standing there watching it. When I was connecting to its consciousness, I was connecting to the hive of its origin. Like
Mhm.
there were other thing. I don't want to call it a thing. I don't know what it was.
Okay.
It looked like an eel with a chicken head.
Mhm.
And there was this, it's like a ceremony going on between them because they knew it was going to die. And these beings were like nothing I'd ever experienced. I'd never experienced that kind of communion and support and love that deep. And it was at odds with what I was witnessing and watching, because my feeling, I couldn't see, by the way, these people, the operating,
Right.
I couldn't see their, I have no memory of that. Excuse me. And I just remember that they were like evil,
Mm.
evil. And then in that moment, my memories are always about contrast, by the way. There's
Yeah.
always this contrast of emotions. Evil people doing terrible things, and then this being connecting to its others like it, and the love there, and just
Yeah.
the contrast of what was going on embedded in my memory. So I took all of that into a regression. And in excuse me, in the regression, I was able to remember what was on the uniforms.
Yeah.
And they look like people, but not quite people. So human-like surgeons, there were other beings in the room, non-human, and on their shirt it said USSR Corp. And the moment I read that, I started remembering all these other experiences that I think happened at Dallas Love Field Airport, which I can see out my window. That's why I'm pointing over there.
Yeah.
But I remembered, so like everything flooded through. Reading that name, everything flooded through. It was, I don't know how much.
Oh, please continue. You're good.
So they were human-like from outside of our galaxy. We were on, I thought it was an asteroid. I don't even know if you can live on asteroids, but it
Mhm.
was dark and it was a moon-like surface, and we were mostly below ground,
Mhm.
and there was never light. And they were looking for something like the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah.
Myself and the other empaths in the room, which I think I remember one of them. I think I went to school with them, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel. Yeah.
I tried to reach out to him directly, but he had a rough go at life too.
Mhm.
Um, we knew that they weren't going to be able to extract whatever they were trying to extract because there was no light. It was like light activated. It was something that was dormant unless there was light.
Yeah.
And we never told them. So, but we would like talk to each other about it and say like, they're never going to get this because it's somehow activated by light, sunlight,
Yeah.
ultraviolet. And this USSR Corp is old. Like they don't do the Monarch programming. They don't do MK Ultra type stuff. It's different. It's like in fact, they kind of like laugh at the like how clunky that training is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot more sophisticated, and it is not fear-based. It is not fear-based. Fear reduces your psychic
I
abilities.
agree. Absolutely.
And so it was between Jupiter and Uranus, I think,
Mm-hmm.
the third and fourth planets from the outer rim, because there was a portal where they could go to their galaxy from there. And they were just pinching things. This is, by the way, I don't think I have full recall. I'm only sharing like what I
That's
remember.
perfect. Yeah.
They were just pinching things from all over the universe, maybe other galaxies, and they were just ruthlessly looking for, at all costs, this fountain of youth on this asteroid or moon. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure. All I remember is it looked like what I think the moon looks like. I don't even know if we know what the moon really looks like.
I think I went there like a month or so ago somehow, but yeah, it looks kind of like the 70s in a weird way. I was in a weird office that looked kind of like, anyway, that all that aside, yeah. But
Yeah, so from what I remember from the moon is it's like dated.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
not
for real.
impressive. It's not high tech at all. So that was the USSR Corp. And I believe that I had interaction with my guidance UDs or ETs, but also interception from this recruitment phase with USSR Corp. And I think that I was only with them until I was around 23.
Yeah.
And then at 23 went to another more marine-like program, because I remember a certain prayer of like wings in the air, butts in the seat that we used to say before taking off. So I was there for 6 years. In my memory, it feels like 6 years of the same thing.
Yeah.
Like over and over and over and over and over. Like I don't have a lot of variation in anything. In fact, I don't even really connect to the whole thing. It's like, imagine you went to summer camp for 3 months. You're only gonna remember a couple things about it
Totally.
because it was the same shit every day for 3 months. It's that kind of
Absolutely.
feeling.
Yeah, I have a very similar sort of thing. Try to insert myself in the strange story, but as a person who I don't think I got drafted into any kind of program as a child. I just don't believe it. But very much like you, I have very vivid memories of returning to a place to me felt like it was around Saturn. I don't know how I know it was around Saturn. I just know it was around Saturn. Come to find out, other people have talked about it. But the version of me that I was able to tune into within that timeline or that realm, um, is really not a good person. In fact, I believe that one of the things that I am maybe currently doing on that timeline is actually putting the things in people and manipulating the sort of consciousness and the mind and implanting sort of memories in their own way, because it's really not a good version of me. We put people in these weird devices. We hold this thing up in front of their face. We'll tell them a new story, give them a new thing, give them a new kind of identity, and then you'll go through this all sorts of weird things. And so it stands to reason that maybe this is an alternate timeline that is concurrently existing alongside ours. I know that's a bit of a diversion from what you're saying, but what do you think about that? Do you think
I
that's
think it's
concurrently running reality?
I think it's so important to talk about. I mean, there are people like Tony who remember going in, what happened, coming out. It ties in to his Earth timeline. And, there are others like Tony, certainly not the only one, where it'd be very hard to argue that anything about what they remember or saying isn't the way it is.
Yeah.
Mine, sometimes I'm speculating. I'm like, is this a simultaneous life? As a medium, sometimes I'm like, is this even mine?
Mm,
Sometimes with Tony, I'd be like, don't tell me, because I'm going to know more than what you're telling me. And I want to know what's mine and what's not mine. Is this a forced consciousness split, which is what I think these programs are doing? They're splitting our consciousness so we are existing simultaneously. Is this programmed? Am I subject to some kind of really terrible manipulation and program?
mm.
Even when I started doing medium sessions, I was like, what if this is, for fear of sounding insane, but I'm way beyond that.
Perfect.
Like,
Go for it.
what if this is channeled information from some fucked up entity that's running some experiment? You know, what if this is not coming from their past loved one,
Hmm.
but instead this is something somebody else wants me to know to play this
Mhm.
game? Like, you have to contemplate all of this, and
Yeah.
you have to be open to admitting, I don't know. I can only share what I remember, what's happening for me, my abilities. The full on explanation for my experience, I don't know. It's a speculation.
Yeah.
But it is interesting when I share things and other people in the programs are like, yes. Even, like even the other day with Tony, I was like, do you remember in the sling? Like that's how we would refer to things when they were about to portal. You'd say, oh, they're in the sling. Or when they were coming back and there was this holding period so that they relined up with linear timeline, you would say, we can't contact them right now. They're in the
Mhm.
sling. And people being like, yeah, I do remember that. It was an expression that we used. Some of that stuff, it starts to make it harder to speculate, but I still am okay with saying, I don't know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. We know enough to know we know nothing.
Yeah.
Or at least that's what I like to say. I know enough to know I know absolutely nothing. Um, wow, thank you. And so this might be a nowhere question, but I definitely want to ask it. You mentioned that after that experience, you kind of went into what you termed as a more marine based program. Do you mind
Mhm.
commenting a little bit on that? What was that like, or what do you recall from that period?
That one is what do I recall? I don't have a straight timeline. I recall that there was more enjoyable components to it. I mean, I was still serving time, but I had companionship. I remember that very vivid details of certain memories, again, because there was a contrast. I remember being on a craft that docked into what looked to me now, I can only compare it with Earth experiences now. It looked like a cruise ship floating
Mhm.
in space. And I remember that the dock looked like a mouthpiece, like a football player would wear, and this disc like clipped
Mhm.
into it. And I would exit into a hallway and I would be given a scan. And in this scan, I could talk to the captain. I don't know if it was telepathically or through a loudspeaker. I just remember, like, I guess I never responded verbally. So there was some kind of
Yeah.
ability to communicate. And they weren't just scanning for contaminants or, you know, did I have contraband or something? They were scanning my emotional body. Because if my vibrational state was too low, I could not enter the ship because the ship was that interactive with us.
Yeah. The consciousness factor. Yeah.
Yes, and it was like I just remember being let in. It was like, okay, you've passed, but that's what they were doing. I remember flying in craft that had torque. So a lot of people just talk about the anti-grav, but for
Mhm.
whatever reason, these ones had the like torque.
I agree.
I remember certain parts of the prayer before we took off, which was wings in the air, butts in the seat, safe and sound until we meet, something, something till
Nice.
we touch ground. Um, I remember F-I it's Figet. That was a title, but it was said like fidget, not it was pronounced different than the way it was
Yeah.
said. I think that's a real actual Marine ranking that's kind of hard to find out about. Um, and I remember like liking my captain.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
I remember that I was used to make quick analytical decisions and that there was this good guy, bad guy story going on. But I remember this because I was at odds with it. So it would be like, okay, we're going to go get the bad guys.
Yeah.
And once we get there, we have to make a quick assessment and decide. And it was often like confrontation or not, death or not, unfortunately. And I remember being like, they're bad guys, but we're still killing.
Mm.
Like that being at odds with that of like, oh, we're on this mission to do like the right thing and get the bad guys. And I was like, but we're still doing a bad thing and killing. But my empath and analytical actually abilities were used in that role. So I was given like the synopsis, like an
Yeah.
overview of the situation that had to be like this. And I did what I said didn't go, it was passed on to somebody else, but I remember being like, "We're not heroes, we're still murdering, like, there has to be a different way."
Wow.
And then just weird things about, another planet with different cars that look like rolled Rolls Royces where the mirrors were up towards the front and the people were blue, and there were really tall buildings because of the the gravity mats. So these really tall buildings, it was easier to build up than out because of the gravity there. The grav mats affected the elevators, so there were always elevator problems. Just things like
Wow.
that, and having like severe elevator anxiety. What are you looking at?
I will tell you that I do this thing when people are talking, and I will view whatever shows up, and so you'll notice me like glitch out in the background. Thank you for being the one and only person that has noticed that or commented on it this far, because people will start to talk, and I consciously will be like, let's find it. Can we find it?
Right.
Can we find it? And just so you know, just to kind of jump back onto some of that, the acronym FIGHT, when you said it, I could hear a bunch of people say it. It's even written down on something. So to me, or whatever that acronym was, it shows up, or rather to me, it checks out as a commonly used or a relevant piece of data, which is odd because for some reason that showed up very heavily, as does the sort of vertical structures in the what we would call the change in gravity, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So I'll sort of do a weird, I'll kind of like look at it in my own strange way. Which kind of brings me to a very awkward question. I noticed that sorry to always go back to this journey to truth thing, but it was
That's
the one
okay.
time that I heard your story. So it's like
It's the only time I've really talked about. I mean, most of the
Oh,
time
cool.
I'm the medium. I'm just there for
Same,
readings. Yeah.
same as me. It's like,
Yeah.
well, I'm just talking about your thing. But that said, one of the very strange and pivotal experiences I have had in this life, I do not know if it's the result of something like a program or an extraterrestrial experience, but I had a device placed in my left eye at an earlier stage or an earlier timeline, maybe in that place. Who knows what it is? I noticed you had talked about a little bit of something that had been placed over, I think, was it your right eye or something during some of the experiences that you recall? Now, in my case, in this body, in this life, about 2 years ago, my left eye actually opened up. This spot developed within my left eye, and it didn't eclipse the vision. I thought I was going blind for a while. I can see it every time I close my eye. But what I realized was that it was an opening, and I could see things on the other side of it. And I don't know if that's common or uncommon, but I use it to connect with things when I do the work that I do. What do you recall about that sort of eye, whatever transmission or implantation process?
I think it was an extraction process.
Yeah.
That's when that memory is very clear of being underground in Texas, like going through these doors on the ground in the middle of nowhere. And down in there was this sort of like medical room with all of these beds. And I think that that's the point when, if my consciousness was force split, that it happened. Because I remember being on the table and astral projecting out of my body. I don't
Mm.
know, I'm just, I think that's what I was doing. But my consciousness was leaving my body, and they could tell when my consciousness was there or not. And I was like standing watching it, and I was mad. I was fucking mad. And the surgeon was like, I want to be careful. I'm making assumptions. The person
That's
operating the devices was like, damn it, she's out again. Damn it, she's out again. And this is an important memory because this is when I gave consent.
mm.
They said, God damn it, get back in your body or we're going to make this very hard for you. And I was afraid of them. So I was like, fine. And that, I think, is the moment when I agreed. So I went back into my body, and now I'm looking up, and this gold arm swiveled over me with a needle, and it came down, and I remember nothing after that.
Mm.
And I think that that needle, I needed to be in my body. My conscious needed to be in my body for whatever they were planning to do. Again, it's speculation and assumption because that's the last thing I remember is it getting close.
Yeah.
and me really fighting, not wanting to be there. And I would have been 12 or 13.
Mm.
So then if you do the 20-year, then I would be like 20, wait, 32. I'm so
There you
bad
go.
with math. So that's what I was talking about. My sister, so interestingly enough, I'm almost 5 months pregnant. And my sister said, well, if it's a girl, she's going. And she said, I know,
Oh boy.
that
Okay.
messed me up. I had to do some work, some
Really? Okay.
serious work for that. But her daughter, who's 4 now, so all of a sudden she became afraid of Halloween because of the masked people. And I have to tell you this interesting thing.
Yeah.
I had her here with me. I live in a high rise where you park down in the basement, several layers. And I had her here with me, and I went down into the parking garage, and I went down a layer and turned the corner. And she looked up and she goes, "Is this the moon? Did we go to the moon?" I was like, what fucking
Well.
kind of 3-year-old says that? No, this looks nothing like what you know of the moon. But then I was like, oh my God, because my sister told me when she was an infant, they warned her, and 3 nights were coming. And then 2
Huh.
gray beings took the baby, and she woke up to them putting her back in the bassinet.
Whoa.
She, from that point forward, said, Mommy, where's your boo boo? And my sister has a little thing here that she calls her port. And her daughter said, there it is, Mommy. And mine is always on the very back here. And it's like,
Yeah.
I know. So I listened to my Journey to Truth interview, and I was like, I didn't fill in any gaps for people. I was all over the place. I
Yeah.
don't want to do that now.
I feel you.
But what you were asking about that memory is what I think was an extraction. I don't remember anything past that except waking up in a hospital gown with a shaved head. And I had these calyx here, and I like looked in the mirror, and they were spiked up, and I was like, you look so stupid with a shaved head with your calyx. That's what I remember. And it wasn't a mirror, it was like the backside of a fucking cookie sheet. I'm doing it. I'm all over the place. The
Oh no,
point is,
this is excellent, by the way. I know like a lot of times you'll feel like you're all over the place,
okay.
but as an observer and a person that's like listening, I'm like, yes, yes, you're actually grabbing onto a number of things that will, I think, give people fragments of their own experience. And you're also helping me figure out my strange journey as well, because it's not a thing that I always go into, and like, I also learn it through the experiences that I've had from other people that will talk about it, and it gives me pieces in my own journey. Oddly enough, the pieces that I pick up tend to be so different than everyone else's that, kind of like you, I wonder, well, where the hell did that come from? Holy shit, is that something, are we creating it? Was it given to us? But I have come to the stage where it's like, I will, it's not that I will take it as truth, but I'll sit there and examine it and hold on to it and turn it over and kind of weigh it against many other options. And for a long time, I would not digest anyone else's information about, whatever this alternate timeline was. And as a weird, bizarre aside, we'll get back to what you were saying in the moment. For me, a lot of it came, a lot of this whole process began, my understanding of this strange kind of secret space program, or whatever you want to call it, this alternate timeline, came through a person who I rarely name him, because if people knew all the stuff, they would be like cringe moment, but came from me when I heard, I'll just say it, here we go, Corey Good had described a dream when he first came out that was literally taken from my life. A literal dream that I had, every single fragment of it, some massive meeting and sitting with beings in this place and all sorts of stuff, almost like a collective experience that many of us had shared. And so, later on, years later, it helped me understand that these are some of the ways that we recover our collective timelines, our collective stories, and just those little details. Like for me, something was, in my opinion, something was definitely put in my eye, because a couple of years ago, it was like I could feel it, I could see it, I could open my eye, and I'm like, well, am I going blind? What's going on? And so you're kind of giving me pieces in your own way. But anyway, if you don't mind, take us back to anything else that you want to mention. You were talking about how you had your niece there, and they had talked about her going to the moon, and then your sister had mentioned, maybe your child, if it's a daughter, would get taken, and I guess maybe that's the next place we're going to go. How do you feel about that? What do you think? What do you think will happen, or what are your views on that?
At first, it bothered me, but then I remembered who I am. And I reconnected to my own source energy, which is an extension of all that is. And I thought, well, just like you chose this and you set yourself up for some things, whatever that is, so will this baby. And it's way bigger than me and it's way beyond me. And other than humanly love her or him, I don't know what it is yet, actually,
Oh,
and
nice.
take care of it, and teach it what I can to allow it to think openly, I'm kind of powerless.
Yeah.
And so I just released it and thought, and then I talked to its soul and said, you need to tell me what you need from me. Here's what I, hope to give to you. And I just started the dialogue super early. And I just assume that this, even though it's coming in as a baby, that the source or the soul of what this is way older with another plan, that it's really beyond me. By the way, that took a lot of work. Like I was disturbed in the beginning of like, is the same thing that happened to me most likely going to
Mm.
happen to my baby? But then I just remembered who I am and who the baby will be, who we all are. And I thought, like, it has choice
Yeah.
and it's choosing this body. And there are things that it knows that I don't know, and things that it will experience that I'll be no part of. And I was able to reconcile the fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huh. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Get ready. Here comes random massive lane shift. Here we go. Once again,
Okay.
this time we're going to the left side of the freeway. So we're going to go over here.
Okay.
And I would like to ask you, one of the things that we've noticed, or rather that I've noticed within our larger multidimensional community over the past couple of years, is a great reliance upon channeled information and these supposed connections that we have with, galactic federations and the multi-galactic federation of et cetera, and the Ashtar commands. And there's all kinds of, disclosures and stories and all kinds of stuff coming through this sort of collective frequency. Now, for me, it was not a thing that I really kind of dove into until, well, I would get fragments of it here and there, but I made a point to not watch or listen to hardly anyone's videos until about the end of last year. And now all I do is watch everyone's videos, you guys. I don't know how, seriously, this weird door open. Now I'm like, I'm going to watch this person's show and like out of nowhere. Now I'm suddenly in all, talking to people over chat and stuff where I used to cringe in that. But one of the things I've noticed is that there is a great reliance and a desire to connect with these forms of councils and federations, and to, deliver these channeled, spiritualized, you know, testimonies of all these things. And as a person who I believe in my own ways had a number of experiences with those energies, none of them seem to want to advise us on the nature of political activity here on planet Earth. In fact, they don't really seem to give a shit. But what is your view on that? What do you think about this over reliance upon us as humans needing to connect with some sort of governmental body on a multidimensional plane? What do you think about all that? I know I set it up awkwardly, but yeah.
I think let me just check in on this. It's egotistical, it's narrow-minded, and it's no different than setting up a religion in a church and saying, this is the way, follow my way. That's what I think.
Yeah. Thanks.
I think that we are to seek ourselves, and we're to work with people who help us find higher truths. And anybody who's sitting here saying, I am channeling the truth, that's like saying, I'm going to go to Africa for a week, and when I come back, I am going to tell you what Africa is. And it's like, first of all, I could never possibly cover all of Africa in a week. We're talking about the galaxy here. And you think anyone thinks that they're connecting to the truth, they need to go look in the mirror and realize this is no different than setting up a church and saying you have the way.
Yeah.
And it's so limited and it's so egotistical and it's so misguiding. And I think the greatest teachers of our times, and by the way, I think some religion is beautiful. So,
Totally.
but what Christ taught, what Buddha taught, we could go on and on. There are so many beautiful teachers. You must seek your own truth.
Yeah.
And you can't get sidetracked by making idols of people who claim to be connected to something that you are not connected to. Get off your knees. I think that I first heard that from Corey Good, by the way. But seriously, get off your
Yeah,
knees.
for real.
Don't build altars. Don't make idols. Anybody who's not telling you you are as powerful and as connected as any of the greatest teachers who have ever walked this earth, just turn away. Because the truth is, each of us as individuals have direct access to our own needed truth. It will not be the only truth because it's just too big out there, but to your own needed truth that will guide you in a loving, highest vibration possible way, because it is you, because you're not separate from source.
I totally agree.
I checked in and they were like, you can go for this, girl. So
yeah, please do. Thank you for being brutally real. I've had a very similar experience, which is also awkward in its own right, because kind of like you, one of my first kind of understandings of what we would call the higher self and the beings that communicate, at least help me do the work that I do, is that it's like a council and it's this group of beings. And so, as a person that I think continues to check in with my own version of that, I often cringe when I see people, coming through saying the Council of Nine on Saturn's advising us on Ukraine or something. And I'm like, I can nearly guarantee you that most of these multidimensional energies that will exist outside of our realm of consciousness here on Earth, they don't give a shit about our politics. It means nothing to them. But
that's
yes,
my sense as well. No,
yeah.
I was just going to say that's my sense as well. They're not that interested. And so the only person I actively follow and adore, and I have a personal relationship with him, is Randy Kramer. I still follow Randy Kramer, and of course Tony and I, but we're like friends. And when you're friends with somebody, you're like, oh,
totally. It changes.
Yeah.
I feel you.
But he said that in the same way, if a 5-year-old throws a tantrum, as a 37-year-old woman, I can try my hardest to identify with why it's important to them, but I'm never going to see it from their perspective because I'm, 32 years beyond that. Yeah. These beings are millions of years beyond what's going on for us. They can't even identify with our problems, in my opinion. They're so cavemanish. I can't think of a different word.
Yeah, I feel you.
And also the way that we're going to get where we need to be is by each and every single one of us elevating who we are and connecting to higher truths and making different choices in our day-to-day lives, not fighting about politics. By the way, I'm not heartless to acts of violence or death that affect people through politics and stuff. I definitely feel that.
Absolutely.
But we're not going to get there by jumping down to that level and rolling around in it. True compassion is to be able to feel for it, but keep yourself elevated so that you can affect change.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of this is just dropping down into it, and it's dropping everyone's vibe. How do you feel when you get super tied up in debates like this or questions like that? All of us feel like shit. We feel hopeless. We feel disempowered. You don't think there's some agenda for that?
It's a literal emotional energy harvest. Absolutely. Here comes an awkward follow-up question.
Okay.
I have observed what I believe is a timeline that we're kind of agreeing on here as a group of beings on this planet. And it sounds kind of flagrant to say it, but I'll just say it. I believe that one of the things that's being presented to us here as a multidimensional collective is something that we would call the fall of America. What do you think about that possibility? Do you think that we're going into a timeline stage on Earth where this country, this world, or this place that we live in is going to be splintered and the balance of power will truly shift on the planet. I know that was an awkward shift, but what do you think about that? Because it stands to reason that a lot of the world events that are happening right now that are directly harvesting our energy, getting us to buy into these outcomes and these things and all this, sadness and violence. I believe that part of it is to manifest what we would call the utter collapse of one of the big pillars of Earth civilizations. And so anyway, that said, what do you think? Is that possible?
I'm going to give you my psychic sense answer, which
Perfect.
is that all of this is just perception, and that perception is controlled. And ultimately, nothing's changing behind the scenes. People who were in power will stay in power. The people making the decisions are going to stay making the decisions. Our perception of reality is manipulated by media, by beliefs about things, by basically media. And that I don't know that for America to fall, America must have been up. And that's, I think, has been a managed, manipulated perception. And behind that perception, the same people are in power making the same decisions, or corporations or entities. And that really fundamentally nothing is going to change except the management of how we perceive it.
Ooh, there we go. I wish I had a little bell. Technically, I do, to like emphasize something that's dumb, but no, but really, yeah, I love the way you have articulated that, and yeah, I did have another question. I know we've kept you for a while. Hopefully, you're
That's okay. I'm doing okay.
over there. I know, because I'll just go on. You might have to shut me down after a little while, but where was the question? Oh Lord, there was definitely a question there and it got pulled out. That's a good example of like when I'll think I have a very profound thing to mention and I'll load it up and then spirit's all and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's okay. So I will switch over to the other question, which is once again a rapid lane change. We're going from the left side all the way over here to the right, so we're going to slow down slightly. But one of the focuses that I loved of the work that you had done with Tony on the show, and kind of just the stuff that you guys had talked about, is the recovering of memories, of piecing together our human journey. And I wonder if you could talk very briefly just about how can those of us that are maybe those that are watching the show, which, there's not too many people that watch this channel, but they're incredibly devoted and they will absolutely take part in the processes and the things that we bring forward. And so for those of the people that are watching that will find this broadcast in the multidimensional time stream, what can they do to kind of uncover their own sort of blocked memories? And before you answer that, one of the reasons why I ask is also for myself, because even though I do this professionally, I have a lot of weird blocks, kind of like you were saying, gray things. I have a thing where I cannot see a gray alien. I can't. It's like all the experience. I've met reptilians. I've smelled them. I've been face to face with them. I physically touched them with my physical hand. I've been all kinds of weird things. But one thing that never happens is there's no grays. It's just like a block comes in and it's like, boom, it's gone. It's like, I've never seen a gray alien. Like a weird program comes into my head. And so what can we do to sort of break down those barriers and those sort of memory blocks within ourselves?
Okay, I'm going to answer that, but I have to say, like, this is white, this frame.
Yes.
I'm not that color. But we say white people, black people, brown people.
Sure.
Any memory of grays that I have, they're not actually gray. They're more like decaying flesh. Tones of green, olive, sometimes blue.
Yeah.
I just want to say that.
Thank you. It's more of just a term that we'll use,
Yeah.
alien dudes, yeah.
But it's important that we recognize where we're programming ourselves to have a limited reference point. That was my only reason of saying that.
Yeah, I feel you.
So the recall course, it's really like a couple of protocols more than a course, but one of the most helpful things I did it's in there, and you can find it on Tony's site, is create a timeline. Like, here's what I remember. Like mine was like, okay, it started at age 3, this memory on the floor. From 3 to 8, I checked the outside every night.
Mhm.
I remember this purple being in my room, and I went all the way through up until the age that I was. And then from that, the ones that have the strongest emotional charge, let me pause. You know what we didn't put in the course that I think is really important to ask yourself is, why do I want to remember this?
Ooh.
Why do I want to remember this? Is there a trauma? Is there patterns that are repeating that I believe reconciling this will help me make better? It's important to identify, why do I want to remember this? Then the ones that have a strangeness, an emotional charge to them, you take it into a meditation. And there is always more. And that's why hypnosis works. Because we retain in some part of our brain that we're not actively using way more of what's going on than what our awareness thinks about. So when you go into a regression, you're tapping into a lot more data and memories than your awareness is able to process. You can achieve the same through meditation. You can re-enter a memory and look for more. And that's a big part of one of the protocols. There are supplements you can take. There are essential oils you can use. Frankincense is one of them. It's been used in many cultures and religious ceremonies for a long time because it has a certain vibration that taps us into something bigger. Rosemary actually changes your brain to remember. The chemical makeup of rosemary enhances memory. And all of these things are listed out in the course. For me, breakthrough moments, first of all, just seeing everything on a timeline for me, I was like, oh, hold on. There is enough here. Like this, just to see it on paper. What happens is people that go to do that and they stop.
Yeah.
And we talk about that they eat, they shop, or Tony says for men, a lot of times I'm going to say something potentially a little vulgar,
Okay.
but they'll masturbate
Mm-hmm.
because it's part of the like reptilian part of the brain that becomes activated to distract you from deeper work. And so there's some tips there on how to get past that and what to do. Or a lot of times people will say, I went to do this and I fell asleep. And so Tony calls them parting gifts. Like these are intentional programs that are put in. I had something weird where I would go to think about something and I would start thinking about cereal boxes.
Oh.
And in writing or editing Tony's book, it came out that he was programmed to, I don't remember if it was him actually, I need to be careful. They were programmed to think of Peter Pan's ship in the sky.
Oh, yeah.
And so there are these things where if you're like, every time I'm trying to think about this, I start thinking about this. And it's so random. Like a cereal box is so random. You got to question that and be like, why? Was that programmed? Is that a parting gift? So the course takes about 3.5 hours. So that's how long it would take me to explain everything in there. But those are the big things. Get your
Great.
timeline,
Timeline.
meditate on the memories. If you're interested in taking, monoatomics and things that enhance your own electrostate in your body and the firing of important neurons and things to remember, working with oils, how to get through blocks, it's all there.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
For me, that has been one of the big elements of this journey is, piecing everything back together. And I have done some timeline work, and I was one of those people that really early on just accidentally I would realize that I could meditate upon a thing and I could return back to the moment. And it was like I also have taken some of my clients through that journey as well, and sort of changed alternate outcomes, changed elements of your timeline. And for me, one of the big kind of confusing elements of it, which is a thing that happens. It's funny because I use hypnotherapy in literally every single session that I do, but I've only had a few regressions. And the most recent one I had was incredibly deep. But what we discovered was that right as I was about to go into what we would call past lives, another version of me showed up and blocked me from that experience and started speaking through me in a whole other manner, like went on this whole other story. And it was like I could feel that it was happening. And what it taught me was that, at least for myself, there was a very, very deep program or something that existed within the self, that right as we would get to this thing, something else would happen. Like for you, it would be a cereal box. For somebody else, it would be a Peter Pan ship. For
Yeah.
me, when I went into that stage, another version of me showed up. And I remember listening back to the recording and my voice changed. And it was like, one, this whole other thing came in. And honestly, it kind of creeps me out. I only listened to it once and I was like, whoa, okay, I'm just going to put that away. And we're not going to check that out. And so it's really helpful for me to hear about other people's processes of remembering, which honestly I think is really what we are all doing. It's like we're kind of like remembering these collective timelines and versions of ourselves. And I guess having said all that, here comes awkward lane change number 5. One of the things you and I are both going to be participating in the coming month, which I think is just a little bit over a month away now, is the Secret Space Conference out there in Grafton, Illinois. I'll say this again real quickly for those of you guys that are on your phone or maybe you're on your laptop. Open up another window and go to secretspaceconference.info, get a live stream ticket, get a ticket if you can make it, and meet us out there, because it's going to blow your mind. But that said, both of us are going to be at this conference. What sort of things do you want to bring in there? What sort of aspects of yourself are you going to be talking about in your own talk or your own kind of process there? And maybe it's too early to ask you that. So.
Well, it's funny. I've been like laughing thinking about it. Like, this is probably going to be rogue. Like, I'm probably going to go rogue.
Nice. Please do.
I had a session after my sister made that comment, like, oh, if you have a girl, she's definitely going. And I did like a 3-hour regression session with somebody not in this community at all.
Go out of network always. I totally agree. Anyway, go ahead.
I did reach out and say, are you open to the possibility of these things? And he was like, I'm open to everything. You should see, like, you wouldn't even, I couldn't tell you all the kinds of things that come in. So I wanted to remember the full prayer that I was telling you about, the Marine prayer. After I got through some of the work with the baby spirit and just, how do I hold this? How do I not live in fear? How do I not want to sleep by its crib every night? All of that. Yeah. After I got those higher messages from myself, then he said, can we recall this full prayer? And my high self goes, honestly, aren't you bored with this yet? Nice. And I was like, I am.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sorry, but I was like,
be real, yeah.
I think I came here to be a medium. I think that that's way more important than the experimental programs. Yeah. And I think that what I showed myself in this connected state was you can only focus one place. And so if you focus everything on remembering and recalling and drumming this up, then your focus is not in this place that can help more people. Yeah. And in that session, I kind of decided, or after like listening to it, by the way, a good regression, you will not remember everything. That's my opinion. I had to listen to it to hear things. I in some places, I thought I fell asleep and that he had woken me up. And I was like, I'm sorry. But I had been talking the whole time. Yeah. I sort of decided my work is a medium. That is why I'm here. And it's not that I don't want to help people with similar experiences. And I am open to anything relevant coming through. But I don't want to focus on that in this life. I think having these conversations with our higher truth or our past loved ones is more connected to my purpose, really. So I'm not sure if I'm going to go totally rogue or if I'm going to be a good presenter. I don't know. I'll wing it.
Yeah. I very much agree with it being what some of us would call a consciousness gateway, a very important chapter of experience that will sometimes, seed other levels and chapters in our life. But it's a gateway that some people will hang out in for a very long time. Some people are meant to be there. That's their purpose, is to explain that. But I also observed a very similar thing in my own life as well. The more I kind of divorce myself from, those timelines and the previous versions of me and step into fully what it is I'm doing now, which is very similar to the work that you're doing, it's as if a lot of those things don't matter. And it's really about like the collective mission and journey of remembering who we are and why we came here and what the purpose is and how to connect with spirit and just all of those, the many facets of us, that for some of us, that was a timeline that we shared. It was an experience that took place, and some of it in this life, some of it's still going on. I think in my case, that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm tuning into another version of me that's still out there. And honestly, when I do it, if I really lean into it, they will tell me all kinds of very weird and dark manipulative things that are happening to people on planet Earth. And they'll explain to me how I can do them as well. And it's like, it's something that is so profound and deep that it's not a thing that I choose to dwell in. It's not a thing where I'm like, I'm not going to stay in that frequency, because I realize the version of me in that other timeline is going through some shit. And I think that's one of the reasons why I do what I do here now, is to deprogram or to release a lot of that. I think a lot of us have had similar experiences, but yeah,
Or
anyway.
to tip the scales.
Mhm.
Some of the work that I do, it can be dark. Certain deaths can be dark, or even just experiences people have had that are affecting their soul. And the best I can come up with is, people are like, why? Why did I have to experience that? Why did I see that? Why are you seeing these things? Why are you becoming aware of this? Why are these messages being passed to you? We know that the nature of this reality that all of our right now, everyone who's here, our awareness is one of balance, where there's always a struggle for balance. And so if you're able to witness that amount of darkness, or you're forced to, or unfortunately you have to endure it, and you're at a stage where you can contemplate it, that tells you just how much light you have to bring in through whatever you choose to do with your life to tip the scales.
Yeah.
So you being aware of that work that you're doing, and it feels dark, it feels evil, or I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Oh, no, it is. It definitely is. There's all kinds of weird programs and stuff we're putting in people, literally turning their bodies over and putting things in the back of their heads. And it's so, one day I'll talk about it on a different live. I'm not going to take up time here. It's a bizarre thing. People will judge me for it, and they'll be like, what? But dude, it's so vivid. But anyway, yeah.
Well,
That's,
I won't judge
yeah.
you, but
It's okay.
the fact that you're aware of that for some
Yeah.
reason, that it's entering the realm of awareness for
Oh,
you,
yeah.
I think can be used to help you understand the magnitude of light work that you must bring into this reality to tip the scales.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for summing it up that way. And I know we've been hanging out here for a while. How can people get a hold of you? I know you mentioned before this, you're sort of booked up on sessions, but and this is also for me, because honestly, I don't get sessions from people like you. I go way out of network. You know what I mean? Where I'm like,
Yeah.
I will, like, when I get a healing from someone, I go to particular people who don't have any involvement within our community, who I know are unbiased. But I also say this because honestly, I would love to get a session with you at some point. How can people find you? Where can they take part in the work that you are creating right now?
Um, I'm not on anything right now. Sorry. I'm not on social media. I'm
No,
not
it's
doing
cool.
Patreon anymore. I was just telling you that I'm probably going to open up a way to just join for free
Yeah,
and see what comes up. Um, I'm really focusing on the medium work. Even before this call, there were like people trying to get through. I think one for you and for people in the chat. I have to ask you about an aunt or someone in that family
sure.
line of the
Yeah,
tree that's around. Um, I'm really just focusing on the medium work now, really. And as you said, I'm very booked. Of course, that factors in maternity leave.
oh yeah.
And I think I'm going to try and find a way, whether it's bringing the podcast back or just opening up group sessions where you can just come in.
Yeah.
So for now, you could just go to my website.
So what's your
Yep.
website again?
It's JackieKinner.com.
JackieKenner.com.
It used to be connections with Jackie, and even Jackie was spelled differently. But when I changed my last name, I was like, I'm going to go to the straightforward spelling of Jackie just to make my life easier.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Nice. So JackieKenner.com is where you can find her work. I pray that you will, like when the time's right. I very vividly recall the time in my life when my son was born, and it was all encompassing for a long, long period. And as a female, I know it's even crazier. So you got all kinds of stuff coming up in your world. But I do genuinely pray that you will, when the time is right, present yourself on a greater level. Because one of the reasons why I think I really wanted to have you on the show is because you ooze a level of realism and practicality and ability in a really awesome, no bullshit manner that I think it's, you don't feel like a consciousness that will be easily swept away by the glitz and glamour of, Solar Warden and the Orion group and the Council of Nine that's trying to advise you about, Trump. It's like, I just love that there's a different frequency that you will bring in that is not subjected to those things. And granted, it's a piece of all of our journey, so it's not neither here nor there. But I genuinely look forward to seeing what you're going to be creating in the near future, and I have a feeling a lot of the people that will be watching this are very eager about it as well. And so,
Thank
yeah,
you for the very kind words. And I think you have a similar vibe, which is
thanks.
why I agreed to come. I mean, I've
Thank
done
you.
like, I saw Patricia in here somewhere too. She's
Yeah, she's
lovely.
here. Hello,
Yeah.
Patricia.
Hi.
She's in the chat, and thank you to everyone in the chat as well. Thanks for hanging out. But yeah,
But I'm a little bit like, I go off of a feeling when people ask me on, and there's not a lot out there because you just wait until you feel your same vibe. So
totally.
everything you've said about me, I feel is true for you as well.
Thank you very, very sincerely. It was an accidental thing. I did not see this coming in my life. As a professional psychic, I did not have the foresight to go, oh yeah, don't worry. By the time you're age 40, all the weird bullshit in your life will be over, and you'll be on a whole other timeline, in a different body, in a different marriage, in a different, everything. I did not see that coming, and so it's always good to be kind of recognized within the eyes of another. I sincerely appreciate that. I guess that said, we're going to go ahead and cut it here because watch out, I will keep you forever. But
Okay. Thank you.
is there anything else that you would like to mention, even if it's on a completely different subject? I strive for kind of like to get everything out that you want to talk about. Is there anything else that you would like to mention?
And the only thing I want to say is before we started, there were 3 people coming through. One I felt like was an aunt for you. One has been visiting me for like a week. It's a Jamal, a Jared, a JA name. It's a male that's passed. It feels somehow related to what we might call like gang activity, or they loved the song that's like, damn, it feels good to be a gangster, something like that. And a Charles. There is a Charles coming through very clearly for someone.
Ooh.
And I know I just said, you can't book sessions with me, but if you're here and that is you and you know it's you, just message me on my website and I'll just connect with you for free.
Ooh.
I'll
Oh, I
just tell
love
you
that.
because it's super important.
Oh, I love that. And I'm gonna instantly ask, what do you think came through from the ant for me? Because here's the thing. I'm a bit of an anomaly in that I'm very unfamiliar with my family and the ones that have passed on. I have very little relationship with them. So there's a number of ants that have died in my family, and I'd never even talked to them. And so I'm just curious if there's anything that comes through there. And it's okay if there's not. I know it's always awkward to be like, tell me, what do you feel?
Well,
But
I had the feeling to put on my opal necklace, and I felt like that had to do with your aunt.
whoa.
And she has dark hair, and it's important that you understand something about her vibration.
Mhm.
Does that make sense to you?
What do you, I guess here we go. I'll make it awkward. What do you think she might have been impressing upon you that I need to understand about the vibration, even if it seems awkward or nonsensical?
She felt like you,
Yeah.
like that you're not alone in your family with this, but
That's
maybe that you're in a timeline where you're able to. Um, there was something else she showed me. It was like, nope, see, this is for your wife. Grape salad or fruit salad. Somebody's coming through talking about grape salad or fruit salad. Yeah.
okay. Okay.
But this aunt, um, there's a vibrational similarity. She was like a powerhouse, but existed in a time when it wasn't safe to be that.
Mm.
And for sure, dark hair, dark hair, dark hair, dark hair. That might help you understand who it is.
Oh, yeah. I honestly, I'm so distant with my family that I have no idea, but the way you present it feels very, very relevant. And even you mentioned my wife in a weird way. And if you want to get technical, I'm just going to tell you, my
Okay.
wife did have an aunt who was an incredible psychic who has passed on, who worked for a number of kind of, I think even some really high profile people in the Middle East. And so I wonder if that's a
It
part of
could
it.
be.
I
It
mean, very deliberately. Yeah, yeah.
it could be. If you can ever find out if there was something about fruit salad or grape
Oh,
salad
I
or
will.
something. Okay.
I will ask her shortly. And who knows, it could also be about me as well. It's just I can feel like when you connect into it, it's like I will feel that. And there's also I totally agree on like the other people and the consciousness that will come through. And that's coming from a person who I'm not one of those people that connects with people that have passed on. My wife's really good at it. She sees ghosts and talk to all kinds of beings. I don't necessarily work with the passed on energies, but I'm much more of a body systems and a multidimensional like connector. There's guides and beings that I wouldn't necessarily describe as passed on, but those are really much easier for me to connect with. I think it's an example of how we'll have specialties in certain areas. And as a person who's observing your energy and in this moment with you, it just shows up in a really beautiful way. And so thank you for sharing that. Anything else you want to mention about that stuff for those beings?
I don't think so. Except that to say your work is all a component of connecting to that unseen world.
Yeah,
Excuse me.
it's all good.
I
Yeah.
did a workout that was too hard for my pregnant body this
Oh, I
morning.
feel you.
My lungs are paying for it.
Oh no, I feel you. We will not keep you much longer.
I just want to add that though. My guides are probably like, stop talking.
I know they're like, okay, you're done.
No, but what the physical work that we do
Mhm.
allows us to expand our nervous system to tap into these unseen things. And so when people ask me about enhancing their own abilities, I don't think most people like my first answer, which is you're gonna have to deal with all your human first.
Yeah,
All
dude,
your human first. So
straight up, all
that's
the
it.
wounds, all the weird inner child stuff, all the traumas, the things you want the most are in the deepest hole within your body. When you go in there, then it all changes. And so, man, thank you so much. I
Thank you.
sincerely appreciate you showing up on this strange show. We're in a weird little armpit corner of our multidimensional soul group. And so I like to say this, only the people that are able to perceive the frequency and the energy that we create are the ones that are going to find this stream. And so for those of you guys that are watching, we got 41 people out there in the multidimensional realm. Thanks for showing up. And for everyone else that's going to be watching this as well. Thank you for being here, Jackie. I'm honored that you showed up. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're going to bring to the Secret Space Conference in May 2nd through 5th at Grafton, Illinois. And hopefully in the future, I pray, when things happen and as we go forward, that maybe we can do something like this again. Or honestly, I pray that I'll be able to get a session with you someday. And I don't even
We can make it work. We can make it work.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. In the meantime, you guys check out Jackie at JackieKenner.com, right? JackieKenner.com.
Correct.
And yeah, we're going to be back here. I'm going to go ahead and pull you off screen as I do my awkward outro. Guys, we're going to be back next week with another guest. I don't know how long we're going to be able to keep this strange show going. If you know me, there's a finite period through which we'll connect and do a thing, and then we'll transition into another stage of being. But for those of you guys that are still here, thanks for hanging out. If you have not yet subscribed to this channel, I pray that you will do so. We do have a bit of a goal. I'm not a goal-oriented person, but we'd like to reach 5,000 subscribers by the end of this year. It's a very realistic goal. And I always say this, you guys can subscribe now. And the moment I say one thing that you don't like, you can have this cathartic moment where you cancel me. You can just unsubscribe. It'll give you a rush. You'll feel good, like you did something right. So please do subscribe, like this video, share it wherever you can. We look forward to seeing some of you guys at the Secret Space Conference. And once again, we will be back next week. You can always find me at rememberyourmission.com, where we do private sessions pretty much every day of the week. My wife and Nora as well. And so We're going to be getting something very, very important in the coming month. I'll mention it before we get out of here. That is the art of multidimensional tarot and energy reading, the third iteration of the most sought after class that I've ever done. I never thought that people would be interested in the work that I'm doing. And for some people, for some reason, people really love this one. And so we're going to be doing a multidimensional tarot class, an energy reading class beginning on May 22nd of this year. So we got a little while to get everybody ready for it. And so I'm just planting the seeds on your timeline because I know a number of people are going to be gathering for that as well. And so in the meantime, you guys stay safe out there, stay real, don't buy into the hype. I honor each and every one of you that has shown up. And yes, we will return to this strange multidimensional timeline once again in just about a week. In the meantime, stay real, stay out of trouble. And yeah, live from a strange armpit in the world of Florida in this strange timeline here on planet Earth in the year 2022. This is the School of Multidimensional Intuition, and we shall return. We'll see you guys later.